Hey listeners, thanks for dropping in. I'm Christy.
And I'm Melissa. And this is Buried Motives, where we dig deep into the details of some of the most gruesome
dirtbag murderers. Hey listeners.
Welcome back to Buried Motives.
Thank you for spending some time with us today.
We are happy you're here. And we are super excited that we've gotten some new reviews lately.
We want to give a special shout out to Moxie Blue for giving us a really nice review. We super appreciate it.
And if anybody else wants to show their appreciation, they could also send us a review. We would super appreciate it.
Totally.
There's a lot of appreciation going on.
There is. There's so much love in this room right now. Which is a good thing because we're about to change our topic into something a little more sinister.
We definitely will be talking about something more sinister. You know, sometimes the cases we research just get under your skin. Sometimes it's outrage at the dirtbag or some aspect about the case. Sometimes it's something about the family or the victim that we can relate to. And sometimes it's just the victim themselves. It's always heartbreaking and shocking to me how many times I've read about similar attributes of young victims. Not their physical characteristics, but more their zeal for life. How many times have we read about or learned about some young person dying too quickly? And they are described as being full of life, or the kindest person that seized every opportunity, or that they were the kind of person who just understood what life was all about. It sometimes makes me wonder if somehow the universe, or they even knew, that they would only have a limited amount of time to figure out the important stuff. The stuff that takes us the rest of a lifetime to figure out.
Oh, wow. That is quite profound, Melissa.
Well, how often do we do an actual case, though, and they talk about her zeal for life was amazing, or he just lived life to the fullest?
Yes, we have covered multiple cases.
And that was definitely the case with the victim in today's episode, Ashley Wadsworth. I'm going to put a trigger warning out for this case because we are going to be talking a lot about manipulation, gaslighting, and intimate partner violence. And for those that have experienced it, it can be upsetting to hear about someone else going through a similar situation. But I do feel that it is so important to talk about these aspects of this case and others like it because it brings awareness to the tactics that abusers often use and how hard it is to recognize those tactics when you're in the middle of everything. Especially if it's a person without a lot of experience with relationships.
That is so true. And I know we have had some listeners reach out to us who have been in similar situations. And we just think you are unbelievably strong. And hopefully, like you said, the rest of us can get some inspiration and maybe guidance, for lack of a better word, from these cases.
Right. There's some learning that can take place.
Definitely. But if you need to tap out for this one, we totally understand as well.
But then you would miss hearing about how amazing Ashley Ann Wadsworth really was. She was born on July 25th, 2002, to Kenneth Wadsworth and Christy Gendron. She and her older sister Haley grew up in Vernon, BC, Canada. And her family is described by everyone as the most loving, kind family. Their poise and grace is just incredible. They were a supportive and loving family. Even when her parents split and started new relationships, they always put their girls first. Ashley, as a youngster, loved horseback riding, boating, and being from British Columbia, not a big surprise, she was totally into skiing. She was an athletic person. She was a happy person, and her laugh was said to have been unforgettable. She was the kind of person that lit up a room and made people smile wherever she went. Her customers and coworkers at her summer jobs would say that she just made everyone's day brighter with her kindness and quick wit. Her friends say that she could always spot just how to help in the right way, and that she was incredibly generous. As a teen, she saved up her own money to buy her niece a swing set.
Really?
Yes, isn't that the most incredible thing?
That is.
Ashley was also incredibly smart and very studious. She graduated with honors from W.L. Seton High School and had plans of becoming a lawyer. She loved traveling and meeting new people, and she had this special gift about being able to relate to others. I think it kind of helped that she also spoke 3 languages.
Oh my goodness, this girl is amazing.
Her sense of adventure had taken her across Canada to California and Mexico, and even England by the time that she was 19. She spoke French, English, and Spanish.
Wow.
She just totally immersed herself in life. My absolute favorite description of her was her mom's. I told you this one got to me.
Oh, we're crying already.
No, but I
could see it building in you, actually. Like your face was getting red. I was like, oh no.
But a mom knows her daughter best, right?
Yes.
Okay, so this is how her mom described her. As a modern-day hippie, an old soul that lived fast.
Oh my goodness.
Isn't that the most perfect description of anybody?
It is.
Yes. She was someone who saw the big picture. That people were what mattered, not money or having clean rooms, but that people felt validated and loved. Her mom also described her as the backbone of their family. She had raised 2 girls as a single mom, and even though Ken was an active and present father, it was difficult, and Christy felt that Ashley always had hers and her sister Haley's back. She was fiercely loyal. Have I painted a picture of what a beautiful human being she was?
Yes.
Yes. The world needs a million people like her, and instead a dirtbag took her from this world, just as she was getting started.
That's awful.
In 2015, at the age of 12, Ashley met a boy online. Not a hugely unusual thing. Lots of kids meet lots of people online. A large part of our social interactions now happen in a digital world.
It's true. Much different from when I was growing up. Not to age myself, but it's true.
Yeah, it's totally true. And so it wasn't really unusual. Through another friend's Facebook page, she was introduced to Jack Sepple, a 15-year-old that lived in Chelmsford in Essex in the southeastern part of England. Can you just envision how this friendship would start? She would be so excited to be talking to an older boy, somebody that lived across the world. It would be such a novelty for her.
Oh, totally.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't care who you are, girls dig accents.
Yes, totally. So I can really see why she would dig this.
Sorry, and how old was she at this time?
She's 12.
And he's 15.
He's 15.
Okay.
So not a huge age gap, but Christy, Ashley's mom, was a little bit kind of put off by it.
It's a big enough age gap at those ages.
Right. But as time progressed, Christy grew used to seeing Jack's on and off again presence in her daughter's life. Within a few months of the two of them chatting back and forth, Ashley had even started talking openly to her mom and her other family members about Jack. She was sharing him with them.
Right. And as a mom in Canada, you wouldn't be so worried about a 15-year-old boy way across the pond in England.
That's right. There's 4,500 miles or 7,242 kilometers between them. So you would have this sense of safety in this friendship developing.
Yeah, you would be much less worried about her talking to him than the boy down the street.
Right. And Ashley was using the family laptop in common areas of the home, so it wasn't unusual for Christy to oversee the pair's interactions as she went about her regular chores around the house. Christy would say that once they had been introduced, she was put at ease by Jack's appearance as she recognized that he was just a kid himself. She figured that he was just a bored teenager, just like Ashley was. That's why they were chatting online.
That's a fair assumption.
Mm-hmm. And it wasn't like the relationship was being hid. It was happening right in front of her. She would be cooking dinner and she would say hello to him. He would say hello back. And so it was like they were all developing a relationship with him.
Right, because when you have nothing to hide, you don't hide anything.
That's right. Over the next 7 years, the two teenagers would develop what would be like a glorified pen pal relationship.
Okay, I had a pen pal.
Yeah. Was it online?
No, it was actually snail mail at that time. We got paired up in grade 5. And we're now Facebook friends, which is pretty wild. So our whole lives, we have stayed connected.
Which is awesome. And it seemed like this is what this couple was doing. They went through periods where they talked all the time. And then they would have periods where they wouldn't talk as much, or they would go for a length of time without talking at all. During the on-again periods, the relationship took on more of like a crush type feel. The two would chat frequently despite the 8-hour time difference. Jack would send Ashley gifts, teddy bears, jewelry, handbags, and even clothing and cash. So
wow.
He really laid it on thick. Ashley's friends would say that Ashley felt like she could understand Jack like no one else. She felt like she had a connection with him, which in hindsight, I think was probably because that's what he was telling her. Can you just see how this would be so romantic?
Oh, it's the beginning of a rom-com.
Mm-hmm. A handsome stranger from afar who sends you gifts.
You've been friends since you were children, the on again, off again.
Yeah. As time progressed, the relationship got more romanticized. At 15, Ashley asked her mom if she could visit Jack. The obvious answer was no. She was 15 and going to visit a 19-year-old in another country was out of the question.
Heck to the no.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have said heck.
No. Hard no,
Yes.
right? For your 15-year-old daughter.
Mm-hmm.
But it didn't stop the two of them from fantasizing about how their lives would be complete once they could at last meet. When Ashley was 16, Jack now 20.
So they're 4 years apart, not 3?
So they're 3.5.
Okay.
It's the birthdays. Jack, now 20, added another tattoo to his growing collection. It was Ashley's name on his arm.
What?
Yes. This was proof of how much he felt for her. Well,
It's so wild to me when people will tattoo a name on themselves. I wonder how many times it works out. You've got to be really sure.
well, this to her was just proof of how much he loved her, and that's why he did it.
Yeah.
While Ashley wasn't ready to do the same, she did feel like she did have this deep connection with Jack. Of course, it wasn't all some Nicholas Sparks novel. There were times when the pair would argue by exchanging angry messages. Usually, these arguments would start over Ashley's extracurricular activities. While it seemed that Jack was fine going out with other girls, as time progressed, he got more possessive of Ashley and wasn't pleased to think about her going out with anyone else other than him. Ashley was a lover of life, though. Just because she had this relationship going on with Jack online, she wasn't going to sit at home twirling her thumbs.
No.
Yeah, she was still living her life, having fun. She was going out with friends camping and hiking, and generally just having a good time. That's what any teenage girl would do and should do.
Exactly.
Jack, though, did not appreciate this and felt that he should be her one and only. He was jealous of any boy in Vernon that he felt that Ashley might have a crush on. At times, the conflicts would become so heated that Ashley would block Jack from her social media. But after a cool-down period, and him reaching out to her friends and sister online, Jack would say he was sorry, send gifts, and weasel his way back into Ashley's online world. When the two would make up and start communicating again, Jack reinforced the idea that Ashley was the only true one that would understand him. And this made their connection seem even deeper. She was needed. Her love was what kept Jack together. By the time that Ashley was 18, she had worked hard enough at her summer jobs to have purchased her own laptop and was making her way into an adult world. It was 2020 and her future laid before her. This was around the time that her relationship and communications with Jack became a little bit more private. It's been speculated that Ashley recognized that Jack's behavior wasn't something other people in her family would approve of.
Okay, so she's recognizing, I maybe need to keep this a little more private.
Right. This is a very common thing to happen in an abusive relationship. And I just want to point out that a relationship doesn't have to be in person to be abusive.
So true. But that also means that deep down she knew it wasn't right.
Right. But through the abuser's own suggestions, or to appease that person, or to avoid conflicts with their family members, the abused person will often start to segregate themselves and the abuser's behavior from others. When the abuser's behavior is apparent to others, often the abused person makes excuses or justifications for it. And so it becomes this cycle where the abused person will hide the abuser's behavior because either they don't want to have to deal with the fallout of it, or they don't want to listen to others around them warning them about it.
And sometimes when you've lived that for a while, you start to almost believe that you deserved it, which you don't.
Right. And that will play into it a little bit later. By this time, I'm guessing that there was an escalation of commitment in the relationship for Ashley. They had been together for almost 6 years. Ashley's mom said that while there would be brief periods that Ashley would be interested in other boys, ultimately everyone was compared to Jack. Jack had a certain pull over Ashley, and it seemed that it was all wrapped up in his supposed need of her to help him. But that all sadly is just in hindsight. For Ashley's friends, Jack's disturbing behavior started to become more apparent in 2020, right around the time that Ashley began to hide aspects of his behavior from her mom. And again, I'm not sure if she did this on purpose, or by this time, if Ashley was just so good at making excuses for Jack's behavior and taking ownership of it herself, that she was probably just chalking it up to Jack being Jack. I imagine that if she anticipated any negative opinion coming from her mother, she would have just thought that her mother just didn't understand Jack.
Right. And Jack is probably telling her, I only act this way because I love you so much.
That's right. He is totally doing that. And she's not understanding the manipulation that's occurring. When friends would point out Jack's behavior as concerning, she would just tell them, oh, that's just Jack. He's a passionate guy, but he has a good heart. She even explained away one incident where Jack drew a knife across her name on his tattoo.
What? So he got an additional tattoo of a knife through her name?
No, he drew a real knife across her name on his arm.
Oh, he cut himself.
He cut himself through her name.
Oh.
Yes.
That is disturbing.
Yes. And Ashley's friends pointed this out. But Ashley said, well, that's just Jack's deranged way of professing his love to her.
By cutting himself through your name? No.
Yeah. She admitted that it was messed up to this friend, but she just really strongly believed that it was just Jack being Jack. And unlike her friend, Ashley understood his bizarre behavior.
Right.
In 2020, while Ashley was out with friends, she received a call from Jack's current girlfriend, because remember, he's still dating where he is. And this current girlfriend was asking Ashley to calm him down.
Okay.
Because she was the only one that could do this.
And did this girlfriend just think that Ashley was his friend, that it wasn't a love relationship?
I think Jack had shared with them that Ashley is an important person in his life.
Right.
And his girlfriend seemed to almost rely on Ashley as an ally, because at this time, Jack's girlfriend was saying that he wasn't letting her leave his flat. And so Ashley's friend, who overheard this interaction, said that Ashley acted like it was just something that happened all the time. She talked to Jack, told him to, quote, stop acting crazy, and he calmed down.
Wow.
And then everyone just continued on their day, like nothing had ever happened. It was just a totally normal thing for this to happen. But it's not normal.
It's not. There's definitely some red flags there.
Mm-hmm. When Jack learned of this same friend's reservation about his and Ashley's relationship, Ashley received a very irate voice message in March of 2021 from him about her friend. In the message, amid the screaming and hollering that he is doing, he tells Ashley about her friend, I'm going to kill her.
What?
Yeah. You and I listening are definitely hearing all the alarm bells. But that's because we've heard these kind of cases before, and we can see where it's leading. But the same alarm bells weren't happening for Ashley, who was in the middle of the situation. She had been exposed to his outbursts for so long that while she recognized them as a definite overreaction, it didn't seem like such a jump from his previous behaviors.
And again, there would be that safety of him being in England.
Mm-hmm. Remember, though, too, that Ashley, while she's incredibly intelligent, is really just a teenager herself and doesn't have a lot of experience with relationships either, and definitely not abusive ones. Her parents have set the most amazing example for her. They remained friends after their divorce. They worked through it and they remained civilized and were all about their girls. So that's her frame of reference, that people are just genuinely good and want to be kind and do what is right. So she's really not thinking that he's this evil guy.
No, she's thinking the best of him.
Exactly. During this time in her life, Ashley was also exploring her spirituality and had been baptized into the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in April of 2021. Through her spiritual journey, she had honestly come to believe that everyone was good and that forgiveness and love could change anyone. She was an eternally hopeful person that believed she could help the lost and troubled Jack. Pamela Cross, a legal expert on violence against women, pointed out that Jack's behavior towards Ashley was a manipulation tactic against her because of her attitude of wanting to help. This expert made an argument that it is a tactic that's often used against a lot of abused women because, quote, women are socialized to think that they are fixers, that they are peacemakers.
Yeah, we want to take care of everybody.
And that was totally on par with who Ashley was. In the fall of 2021, Ashley made the decision to defer her acceptance to the Thompson Rivers University and take a gap year. It seemed like it was the best time for her to do some traveling. Classes were still largely being offered online in Canada. So for her, it just made sense that if she wanted to travel, now would be the time. Very few people wanted to attend online school, especially Ashley, who was super social. She had spent the summer working multiple jobs and she had saved up money, and where she wanted to visit was England. She wanted to go and visit Jack.
Of course, that's where she wanted to go. No big surprise.
Yeah. It wasn't shocking at all to anybody, I think. It sounded like her decision to do this was reservedly supported by both of her parents. They weren't jumping up and down with excitement about the idea, but at the same time, they both recognize she's an adult, she's got her own money. Honestly, what are they going to really do to stop her from going? Her mom figured what was the worst that could happen. If things didn't work out between Ashley and Jack, Ashley would just come home. Nothing more sinister ever crossed her mind.
Well, and it wouldn't.
No. One of the saddest parts that I read about this case was Ashley's grandpa, Jeff Wadsworth, was Ashley's person. And he was totally excited that she was going to go off and explore the world. He was the one that really supported her. He figured that she was smart and responsible, that she had the money and the time. Why not explore? He rationalized that England was one of the safest places in the world for her to go and explore to. He felt that his granddaughter's feelings of wanting to explore the world beyond her small town were perfectly normal for her age. And they absolutely were.
Totally. And I can relate to those feelings of wanting to see your children, and for him, his grandchild, to live life to the fullest.
Yeah, especially when you have that more mature view of life.
Yes.
Ashley was so excited. Vernon, while not an extremely small town, was to Ashley, like most teenagers spreading their wings, overly small and constricting. She just wanted out of her small town life. She was excited to venture out on her own, to see the sights, and finally, after 7 years, meet Jack in person. She applied for a 6-month tourist visa, and on November 12th, 2021, at the age of 19, flew to London, her first time traveling alone. Her dad dropped her off at the airport, wished her good luck, and told her he loved her. She excitedly sent her family a selfie from the plane, commenting on how big it was. More pictures would follow from London the next day. Ashley's Facebook profile picture was changed to a smiling portrait of the couple together at last, both beaming and both cheerful. Then, on February 1st, her family received another kind of message, one that no one should ever have to receive about a loved one, especially their child. Essex police told Christy that her youngest daughter was dead, and 23-year-old dirtbag Jack was in custody for her murder. This fairy tale journey that Ashley had so looked forward to for so long had turned into a nightmare.
Oh, Melissa, this is awful. I've had my older daughters travel the world, and you are so excited when they go to a new country. But I cannot even imagine how helpless as a parent you would feel in that moment.
When they're so far away from you?
Yes.
Yes. I think people in general just had this overwhelming sense of how could this happen and end this way for such a beautiful person. When Ashley arrived in London, she moved in with Jack into his 1-bedroom flat on Tennyson Road in Chelmsford, where he had lived since 2020. After the initial honeymoon period of visiting all the popular British sites together and posing for happy pictures, Ashley began to learn who Jack really was. Jack Sepple was born on January 9th, 1999, to Tracy Boland and Darren Sepple. His parents split early in his life, and it sounds like he had a pretty strained relationship with his father. As a youngster, it seemed that he enjoyed music, but was described as brooding, a person that had difficulty managing his emotions. At school, he was described as aggressive and was often in trouble for acting out and throwing tables. A childhood friend would say that Jack was a funny and boisterous kid, but with a dark side. This friend said, quote, he had a lot of love to give, but he was very quick to snap or lose his head.
So did he have a chemical imbalance?
He does have psychological issues, definitely an antisocial personality, but there wasn't any nailed down chemical imbalance that any records I found gave name to. But definitely he had this fly off the handle personality from a young age. His brother, who was also estranged, would later describe Jack as a, quote, sick, twisted, evil individual.
From his brother?
From his brother.
Oh, that says a lot.
Mm-hmm. While in elementary school, a friend beat Jack at a video game, and Jack ran to the kitchen and began slicing his wrist, and his mother had to wrestle the knife from him.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, he really has impulse control problems.
Yeah, there's definitely something going on here.
Mm-hmm. His mom would later move him to CSS Haybridge, a school that was for at-risk students because he was having so much difficulty in his regular school. A teacher from there would say that Jack was intimidating, especially to the female staff members, but that he could also be charming too. His father passed away at a relatively young age in 2019. right around the time that Jack's emotional outbursts and rage were really taking hold of his life. His mother remarried in August 2021, interestingly to a man who was a cognitive behavioral therapist and had a degree in psychology.
Really?
Yes. I just found that tidbit so fascinating.
Quite ironic.
Well, is it ironic though? Or is it like a natural progression? If you have a mom struggling with this child, that I can see why a relationship would develop between somebody that also had that knowledge or background and could understand.
Yeah, that is a really interesting aspect of the case.
Mm-hmm. Not that it did much to prevent the downward spiral that Jack was now headed on. When Ashley moved in with him, he was unemployed, being supported by his mom and social assistance programs. Because he was unemployed, the two ended up spending a lot of time together. Ashley couldn't work because of the travel visa, and after the initial honeymoon phase, Jack wasn't interested in leaving the tiny apartment very often. He had very few friends and no desire to be around other people. Within weeks, all Jack wanted to do was stay at the apartment, smoke weed, and play Xbox. The couple, or mostly Ashley, I'm guessing, got a kitten and named him Winston to combat the boredom that they were feeling.
Yeah, you don't fly halfway across the world to just sit and play Xbox.
No.
That doesn't sound like that's what Ashley would have been wanting to do with her time in England.
No, this lifestyle was so different from what Ashley was used to. Remember, she had put off university for a year because of online classes. She was a social butterfly and loved being around people. This would have been so difficult for her to deal with. The fairy tale that she had created in her mind, that she had built up for 7 years, must have come crashing down so hard on her. And then it got even worse. Ashley tried to make friends in Chelmsford. She was chatty and cheerful to neighbors. It really was just who she was. And prior to leaving Canada, a friend had given her a number of 2 young people from the church that she would be able to attend in Chelmsford so that she could reach out to them. So she tried. But Jack would have none of it. He started to restrict her interactions with neighbors for fear that she would meet someone else. He wouldn't permit her to attend church services, and she wasn't allowed to go on road trips with any new friends that she had made.
Goodness.
Can you just imagine the isolation that she must have felt?
No. But because she knows nobody else there, she would feel stuck.
Mm-hmm.
Who's going to help her?
Yeah. Ashley tried, though, to make the best of the situation. She followed Jack's rules. She only texted with her friends from church. And to keep Jack from becoming angry, she started deleting her message history after she learned that he was going through her phone and keeping an eye on her.
Because no matter what she's typing, he's going to take it in a negative way, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I think that's what she's trying to be protective of. But she was still trying to reach out to people. Her friends tried to tell her that this wasn't okay, but she just kind of brushed it off, telling them that she just wanted to make Jack happy. And how sad is it that she felt she had to go to these extremes to keep his jealousy in check so that he would feel more secure in their relationship. It didn't matter what she did. He would always spin it so that it was always her fault that he lost his temper and was now unhappy.
Well, and you can never keep a narcissist happy.
No, but keeping Jack happy did become Ashley's top priority, because what everyone else didn't know yet was that he had now become physically abusive towards her. And when he was unhappy, that was when he would become violent. And that she kept this secret from her family was a little bit of a surprise to me, because she seemed to have such a close relationship with her family. But I wonder if she kept it secret from others because she was too embarrassed, or if she was again still trying to protect Jack's image in their mind. While this was happening, she was still continuing to post images on Facebook of the two of them being happy together.
That is so heartbreaking.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and he would have been telling her that this was her fault. Mm-hmm. And that can really mess with your perspective of things.
Right.
This is a new thing for her. She's come all the way to England. She has all this hope and this love to give, and she's just really wanting to make it work.
Right. I think there are so many emotions that an abused person goes through. The embarrassment of not wanting to admit that, hey, I made a mistake and I came here and I shouldn't.
Even though it's not your fault.
Right.
Yeah.
Or the emotion of feeling duped, right? You're the smart person. How did you get here? And you don't want to admit that this is where you're at.
And maybe it just took her off guard. Mm-hmm. She's young. She's not had a lot of experiences yet. And so just not knowing, sometimes you go through something and you'll think, oh, why didn't I do this? Why didn't I handle this way? Why didn't I say this? And that's what life experience gives us, so that the next time we know how we're going to handle that.
Right. And she didn't have that life experience yet.
No, she was probably terrified and even in shock that this is what was happening, because she's kind of built Jack up on a pedestal.
Mm-hmm. It's just so sad. There are so many things that go into why she didn't just get help sooner. For us, looking from the outside in, it's always so much easier to see things in hindsight. But when you're in the middle of it, it's so difficult to actually recognize this is what's going on. And there's a lot of things that you do during that relationship to even protect yourself, to not realizing what's going on.
Right. And she's probably thinking, if I tell my family, they're going to make me come home, and I want to try and make this work. I don't want to leave it like this.
Exactly. Because that's the kind of person she is. She's believing at this time that everyone is a good person. Everyone can be saved. He just needs somebody that understands him. She's kind of worked herself into a corner. On Boxing Day, 6 weeks after she had arrived in England, Jack texted his mom telling her that he, quote, smacked Ashley, which I thought was a weird thing to text your mom. When he tried to rationalize hitting Ashley to his mom told him that there wasn't any reason to lay hands on her. The reason why he said he was angry at Ashley was because she had erased a couple of British numbers from her phone from over a year ago. That's how deeply he was looking into her messages and contacts. That same day, in a text to his mom, I believe Jack demonstrated a complete knowledge that his actions were wrong, and he knew the logical consequence of them when he messaged his mom and said, quote, she's the only person I've ever truly loved, and I'm ruining it, and it's killing me inside. So I believe he had a knowledge that what he was doing was not right, and that it was going to push Ashley away. It wasn't the right way to treat her. The next day, presumably after Jack had apologized, Ashley changed her Facebook picture to yet another photo of Jack with his arms around her, both of them smiling, and the caption beside it read, "My bestie," with a red heart. Again, I wonder if this was just a way to appease him, or maybe Jack even changed the profile picture himself, because it was around this time that Ashley would start keeping a secret Snapchat folder. In it, she kept pictures of bruises and injuries that she had gotten at the hands of the dirtbag that was professing to love her. She obviously knew that this was not a healthy relationship, and she did tell her sister about what was going on, but she asked for her sister to keep it a secret from her mom. Haley, her sister, would later say that Ashley was concerned that her family would hate Jack if they knew, and she made Haley promise not to tell anybody.
Goodness. Poor Haley. This is so heartbreaking.
It is. Just a few days later, Jack attempted suicide, taking an overdose of his anti-anxiety meds. Ashley found him and called the ambulance, and he was able to be saved. When he left the hospital, it was Ashley that was appointed his caregiver.
What?
Yeah, the one that would oversee his medication from its new place in its lockbox. So she was the one that the nurse handed over the lockbox and said, okay, now you're responsible for making sure that he only gets his required dose. You're responsible to take care of him.
My goodness. Just adding fuel to this horrific fire.
Mm-hmm. Emma Kenny, psychologist and true crime YouTuber, does an episode on this case, and it is very well done. I really enjoy her insights. She delves into the attempted suicide and more or less says that Jack wasn't really trying to take his own life, but that he was using it as a tactic to manipulate Ashley and make sure she didn't leave.
Yeah, because then, oh, poor me. She's got to take care of me. Look how broken I am. Which is going to keep her there longer, too. Because at the hospital, that would have been the perfect time to be like, look, this is what's going on. Show them the bruises and get that help and get the heck out of there.
Yeah. The level of this dirtbag's manipulation is hard to wrap your head around. But it is exactly what he was doing, and he gets away with it because Ashley is such a kind and giving person. She now felt responsible to take care of him. It traps her there, and any thought of leaving probably now seemed impossible. I'm sure it was a constant thought in her head that if she did leave Jack, he would try to kill himself again.
Oh, that's a common tactic with abusers.
Yeah.
And it's just taking so much advantage of what a good person she is.
Yeah.
It makes me sick.
It is so despicable.
It's terrible.
Ashley didn't share Jack's suicide attempt with her mom, but her sister Haley did. It slipped out one night, and Christy, understandably now worried about the couple and her daughter's well-being, She asks Ashley to come home, but Ashley insists that everything is fine, Jack will get better. She did the same thing when Haley pleaded with her to come home next in early January, when Jack smashed a glass beer mug over Ashley's head in one of his fits of rage. Ashley FaceTimed Haley crying as Jack stood over her and demanded that Ashley clean up the mess. As any concerned loved one would do, Haley begged her sister to fly home, all the while Jack paced, ranting and raving in the background.
I cannot even imagine how helpless you would feel in that moment to see. And that means Jack didn't even care who was seeing what he was doing. He was so out of control.
At that moment in time, he was so out of control that he didn't care that Haley was witnessing all of this. Jack's mother and stepfather tried to help reset Jack's mental health and the couple's relationship with a trip to Rye, a small coastal town. The trip seemed to be a success. Everyone appeared happy in the pictures that were posted on social media, and Ashley seemed positive in her interactions with her family after the trip. Ashley posted on January 11th about the trip saying, "All the photos, more coming, of my amazing trip to London with Jack and his parents for his birthday. So thankful for them." From her vantage point halfway around the world, Christy was beginning to think that her daughter had been right. Jack had just needed some time, love, and medication to help stabilize his mood swings.
And as a mom, you would have that false sense of security, knowing that his parents were there and involved.
Yes. And she's the one that has raised this daughter to believe that everyone is kind of good. So she's probably believing that everyone deserves a supportive environment. It helps them thrive.
Yes.
But in reality, this dirtbag needed more than support and love and a trip to the coast. He had spent years developing an attitude and reinforcing a personality disorder that lent itself to violent outbursts when he was not in control of a situation. Within weeks of returning from their trip with his parents, Jack once again was triggered into a jealous rage. Once again, he was going through Ashley's phone looking for evidence that she was hiding something from him, something that would prove that she was going to betray him or was planning to leave him. In his fury, he demanded that Ashley turn over all of her social media passwords. And she did. I'm speculating here, but maybe she was afraid and she just handed them over. Maybe she was trying to prove that she had nothing to hide. So here, have all my passwords. I don't care. Or maybe she was just trying to ease his troubled mind. Like, please don't be upset. Here, you can have them.
It's probably a combination of all of those.
Yeah. But it is the worst thing that somebody could ever do, because that was her final line of communication. Things only got worse as Jack now controlled everything, and that control didn't seem to satisfy his jealousy or his insecurities. Her family didn't know the full extent of what was going on. They didn't know that Ashley was having to sneak out to socialize with other people. They weren't privy to all the times that he was physically abusive. But Ashley's sister Haley did witness more of his tantrums online in January. Near the end of January, while video chatting, Jack became angry at Ashley and hit her in front of her sister. The altercation escalated as he threw a candle and a television remote at her. All the while, Haley is watching helplessly online, begging her sister to come home.
Wouldn't you call the police? Like, not to put any kind of judgment on the family, but would you not call the police in that moment?
I don't know if you would. You're trying to communicate with your loved one, right? Like, this is too much. You need to come home. And during this communication, Ashley did agree with her sister that going home was the best thing to do. But later, her mind changed because she felt that Jack was still the charming boy that she had once chatted with, instead of the monster that she was now dealing with.
Yeah, Jack is a highly disturbed individual who is a massive dirtbag.
And a master manipulator.
Yes.
Ashley backtracked on her agreement with her sister and decided to stay after being convinced by Jack's apologies one last time. Jack's pattern of behavior was very predictable. It followed a classic cycle of abuse. He accused Ashley of being disloyal, justified his abuse, blaming Ashley, and then apologized. Unfortunately, Ashley was just too close to this situation to see this cycle repeating itself over and over again. Jack was the one that had a clear picture of what was going on. With the talk of Ashley flying back to Canada, he was well aware that there was the real potential of losing Ashley. On January 29th, while texting with his mom again, he even suggested that Ashley going home might be for the best. His mom replied to him, quote, "Running away is not the answer. Relationships are hard work, and it takes effort, patience, and love to stay together." But she added, "If you want her to go, I understand."
Oh, I get where the mom is coming from. But if I knew that my lousy little son had been smacking his girlfriend, I'd be like, yeah, son, you need to let her go. I'd be talking to her and saying, you need to leave my son. He's asinine.
Yeah. It makes me wonder if she had the whole story, because we all give parenting advice only knowing half the story. But if she really did know the full story, this was horrible advice.
Well, she did know that he had hit her.
Mm-hmm.
And how often is that an isolated event?
Right. The next day, Ashley's Facebook photo was changed to another photo, showing them both smiling, giving everyone the impression that things were going okay. But that same day, Jack wrote to his sister Nadia, quote, I'm obsessed with Ashley's past. 2 days later, he found another picture on Ashley's phone that again made him think that she was cheating on him. This time, it was supposedly a picture of a naked woman. And now he started accusing Ashley of being a lesbian. He's just finding anything and just accusing her.
Oh, yeah. And if you are wanting to find that, you're going to find it in the innocent things.
Right. That morning on February 1st, just before 8 a.m., Jack's neighbor Helen heard screaming coming from the apartment through their shared wall. Minutes later, Ashley was banging on her door, barefoot, bleeding, and terrified. Ashley told Helen that Jack had hit her, broken her phone, and thrown Winston, the defenseless kitten, against the wall in a fit of rage.
Oh.
Ashley was now terrified for her own life, telling the neighbor she feared Jack was going to kill her. Helen calmed Ashley down, and she encouraged Ashley to call the police. But Ashley didn't want to get Jack into trouble, or what she felt was worse, harming himself. She recognized that what he was doing could get him in trouble, but he had gaslighted her so many times and twisted things so often that she was more concerned about his well-being than her own.
Again, why didn't the neighbor call the police?
Well, she's trying to say, like, let's call the police, and Ashley is begging her not to. Because she doesn't want Jack to get in trouble. She doesn't want Jack to harm himself. Because that's what he's done in the past.
Right, but Jack needs to get into trouble.
Oh, absolutely.
As the neighbor, as soon as she left, I would be calling the police.
But Helen's in this situation where she's having somebody tell her not to, right? Helen tried to convince Ashley to come to an appointment with her, to just leave with her. But Ashley declined and said that she would return back to Jack's apartment. Helen was clearly feeling uneasy about the situation because she went to the apartment to make sure that Jack had calmed down enough and that Ashley would be safe returning. Jack, by this time, was calm, and he assured her that everything was okay now, and he made this big expression of an apology to Ashley in front of her, and Ashley was feeling safe, and so she did. She left Ashley with Jack. This neighbor actually goes back again before she leaves for her appointment. She knocks on the door, and Jack answers the door, and he just tells them that we're in bed now. So she leaves for her appointment at 9:30, thinking that, okay, they're kissing and making up. Another neighbor would stop by the flat that morning shortly after 9. This neighbor, Lucy, was delivering a parcel that had been mistakenly dropped off at her house. Jack again refused to open the door to her, but she honestly didn't think too much about it because she knew him to be a very unfriendly person. So he's like, oh, he's just being a jerk again, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
After these visits by the neighbors, Ashley gets a hold of Jack's phone because remember, he's broken hers earlier that morning, and she calls home. It's almost 3 a.m. in Canada. Christy listens terrified because Haley has now filled her in on everything that's been going on, and now her daughter's calling her at 3 a.m. in the morning. Ashley's family jumps into action. They immediately start arranging for her to come home. The soonest available flight, though, for her is February 3rd, in 2 days. And that's because, remember, this is when everybody needed a negative COVID test to get on the flight to go back home. Yeah. So they need to arrange enough time for her to get this test done, to actually get on the flight and to come home. Haley, desperate to help her sister, reaches out to Jack's mom, Tracy, who said that she couldn't really help them right now because she herself was at the airport on a totally unrelated trip. So she can't go to the house right now at this moment. But she expressed her concern to Haley that, quote, as soon as Ashley leaves, he's going to kill himself. She clearly knew that her son was unstable. While Ashley was arranging her flight home, her mom is being very vocal with her and Jack. She told her daughter to leave and go straight to the airport if Jack exploded again. She told Jack that she'd call the cops if he hurt Ashley further. And this is when Jack puts on a nice guy mask and starts talking to Christy and tells her, don't worry, he's apologizing. He's going to now take Ashley to get her COVID test done. He realizes the best thing is for Ashley to go home. Thinking things are arranged and that there is a plan in place, her family at home settles in to wait for Ashley to get home.
That'd be torture. This is an awful case.
Mm-hmm. So they go to bed with the assurance that Jack is now calm again. And Ashley has a plan to leave if he gets upset. Like they're like, okay, everything's set. We just have to wait. There's nothing more we can do from as far away as we are. They go to bed with Ashley's assurance that now everything's okay. I'm going to be fine.
They're trying not to overstep, but at the same time, that's just an impossible situation to be in.
Yeah.
It would be really hard not to call the police and have her removed from there.
Yep.
It's what I would have wanted to do.
And Jack is playing this part so well.
Oh, he's a master manipulator.
Mm-hmm. They all bought it, that everything was going to be okay, even Ashley.
And even his mom sounds like a bit of a manipulator to be saying to Haley, oh, he's going to kill himself when your sister leaves.
Well, I think that was just her first thought. Like she honestly believed that that's what would happen.
But it's playing on people's emotions.
It is. I don't know if she did it purposely or not, but it does definitely play on people's emotions. Between 11:22 a.m. and 12:38 p.m., Ashley sends her family and friends in Vernon panicked messages on Jack's phone. But it was the middle of the night, and there were delays in them being read. During this time, Ashley also sent messages to two of her friends from the church from Jack's Facebook account. One of the messages read, "It's Ashley," she wrote to one friend. "I need your help. It's an emergency. Please." These messages also weren't received until hours later. Then, minutes after Ashley had sent these messages, Jack sent his mom a message on WhatsApp. It read, quote, "I beat up Ashley real bad." His mom responded, quote, "Is she hurt?" "Jack, why?" 14 minutes later, he replied, quote, "She thinks she broke her arm. I picked her up and threw her on the ground and punched her and ripped her all around the lounge." According to phone records, Tracy didn't ever respond back. So I don't know if this is like, did she just get on her plane? Because remember, she had told Haley earlier that she was at the airport herself. So did she not get this last message? What happened? But for whatever reason, she never responded back. When Ashley's family woke up to these messages, true panic took hold, and they couldn't get a hold of her. I cannot imagine what this family experienced to have your child out of your reach and know that they need to be protected and that there was not a physical thing that you could do.
The nightmare.
It would be. What this family has gone through was just compounded by the distance and space between them and Ashley. They actually had to pay for and wait 3 weeks before they could actually bring her body home. Almost $40,000 would be donated to cover the cost of repatriation. But then to have to deal with all the court cases afterwards and travel to the UK, it's just more than one family should ever have to go through. And all because of a dirtbag's actions. The family called everyone that they could think of. They called Jack. They called Ashley's few friends that they had learned about in England, asking them all to go and help Ashley to get to a safe place. Ashley's friends, once they got the message, did try to reach out to her, but they only received a Facebook message back saying that everything was, quote, sorted. She'd simply wanted help finding a COVID test and no longer needed assistance.
Why is nobody going there? Why is nobody calling the police?
Well, these friends do, actually. They recognize that this message is super suspicious. And they continue to try and reach out to her, and when they can't get a hold of her, they go to the flat. Jamie and Taylor, friends of Ashley's, knock and knock, but no one answers, even though they can hear somebody moving around inside. When this happens, they dial 999. Officers arrive just minutes later at 4:13 p.m., and after repeated attempts to get Jack to open the door, they force their way in. In the bedroom, they find Jack sitting calmly on the bed, on his mobile phone alongside Ashley's lifeless body. He's actually been on a video call with his sister, telling her that he's killed Ashley, and he showed his sister Nadia her body. Police called for an ambulance, but it was already much too late. Ashley's body was cold and rigor mortis had begun to set in by the time that paramedics arrived on the scene. It is such a tragic scene to see them bring her out to the front yard where they try and work on her, and the paramedic says, "There's nothing we can do." She was pronounced dead at 4:38, less than 48 hours from the time that she was supposed to be on her way home. Jack was arrested immediately and told police that he was, quote, psychotic. I'm very sorry. I stabbed her and strangled her. It is believed that at some point between 12:38 and 12:45, Jack strangled Ashley. Then he went to the kitchen and selected an 11.5-centimeter knife and returned to the bedroom, where he stabbed her at least 90 times in the chest and abdomen.
90 times.
90. The autopsy would reveal defensive wounds and numerous other injuries that were in various stages of healing from the beatings that Jack had previously delivered. After killing Ashley, Jack made a video with Ashley's body in the frame and addressed it to Haley. It was a video he never sent. In it, though, he is breathing heavily and tells Haley that he loved Ashley and was sorry. And then he turns towards Ashley like he's talking to her and says, quote, couldn't ever let you leave. This video was recorded at about 12:45. After this video, he made small superficial stab wounds on his own chest, which prosecutors later believe he did to try and lay the groundwork for a self-defense claim. After hiding the knife behind the radiator in the lounge, Jack carried on with his day, ignoring the calls that were coming in from Ashley's worried family and friends. Blood on his Xbox indicated that gaming was more of a priority for him than dealing with the monstrous thing that he had just done.
He went and played video games after.
Yeah, for the rest of the afternoon. Jack was taken to Chelmsford Prison, and while there, he scribbled a chaotic and nonlinear statement on the front and the back of a list of rules. His note claimed that he was high during the murder and that he'd, quote, stabbed the life out of her to prove he owned Ashley. He was angry that she wanted to leave. Toxicology would later show that there was only cannabis and anti-anxiety meds in his system. There was no way he was out of control.
No, and he was totally cognitive through the whole thing because he knew to make some defensive wounds and then just went and played video games.
Mm-hmm. After being determined to be mentally fit to plead and stand trial, in September of 2022, Jack entered an unemotional guilty plea to murder charges. And I don't believe that there was any remorse in this guilty plea at all, because he had no other choice but to plead guilty because of the evidence against him.
He was literally caught red-handed.
Exactly. He didn't plead guilty because he was remorseful.
No.
During the sentencing hearing, Ashley's family learned about Jack's past, one that they hadn't ever known of. Jack had a known history of violence against women. Even though he was only 23, he had racked up 8 convictions over 12 incidences, almost all of them against his previous girlfriends, and there was one even against his own mother.
And yet the mother said you stay and work on the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, she's a dirtbag too.
I'm trying to sympathize with her, but the choices are just so hard to understand.
No, I don't mean to cut you off, but no. You know that your son has been charged 8 times and that he's violent towards women and he's done it to you. And then he says, I think Ashley should go home. And you're like, no, son, work on it. Because you're more important than any woman that you could come across. And she can be your little punching bag if that makes you feel better, son.
No, flee like crazy. That's what she should have been telling Ashley.
That makes me so angry as a mother and woman to woman that you wouldn't step in and protect that girl, knowing what a dirtbag your son is.
She has her own daughter. She should have understood.
Oh, sorry, you guys are riled in this one.
It is so heartbreaking all the way around. But let me tell you a little bit about Jack's past, because it's even more riling. In 2014, when he was only 15, Jack met a 14-year-old girl online. During their relationship, he took naked photos of the girl without her permission. And when she broke up with him, he hacked into her Facebook account and posted the images for everyone to see.
Oh, revenge porn.
Yep. She filed a restraining order, and barely a month later, he breached that order by requesting to follow her on her Instagram. The same year, Jack got into an argument with his mother about his Xbox and shoved her to the floor before tearing doors off the hinges. In the following March, he breached the restraining order again, sending another Instagram request to his former girlfriend. After a minor slap on the wrist, Jack waited all of 6 minutes before contacting this same victim when the restraining order had expired in 2017. 3 years later, and he was still trying to get at her. He continued to send her harassing messages. The following January, he sent her a message that read, quote, "Please reply. You are never going to get rid of me, even if I have to go to prison over you. I'll see you soon, and I will turn up wherever you live." For this, he served a suspended detention sentence. In July of 2018, his mother called an ambulance after he cut his arm. Angry at her for involving paramedics, he again damaged a door in her home. He was sentenced to 8 weeks in a juvenile offender institution, and a restraining order was filed by the court on his mother's behalf. This restraining order wasn't actually lifted until June of 2019. And it was then that Jack and his mom started to work on their relationship again, because he had been so violent towards her. In September of 2018, so just going back a little bit, there was another breach of a restraining order. He made a new Instagram account to contact his victim after she blocked him, which resulted in yet another detention sentencing. The following month, he pled guilty to trying to break and enter into a supportive living facility and received a 21-day sentence. Then, in March of 2020, he met a woman on Facebook. They moved in together quickly, but she eventually found him to be jealous and unpredictable. When she tried to break up, he put his hands around her throat and locked her inside the house. After she escaped through a window, he bombarded her with messages and phone calls, but she did not press charges.
Goodness.
Months prior, he had locked a different woman inside of his house. For that, Jack was charged with false imprisonment, common assault, and coercive or controlling behavior. Because the victim did not attend the trial hearing or provide evidence, he couldn't be convicted, but a non-conviction restraining order was filed on her behalf, bringing his total number of restraining orders at one time to 3.
It's all bullcrap.
Yeah. Remember, this is all going on while he's in communication with Ashley in Canada.
How can anybody look at this track record and think that he is not going to kill a woman one day? He even admitted it to the first girl.
Right. And if all of this does not paint a clear enough picture, another ex-girlfriend shared a photo that Jack had sent her around 2018, in which he was holding a knife to his own throat with blood dripping from a shallow cut he had made. The accompanying text message read, quote, "I am sad," trying to manipulate her by making her believe that he would harm himself if she didn't help him. It was his pattern to use women's sympathies against them, to make them feel sorry for him and responsible for him, so that he could then use those emotions to manipulate them into staying and enduring more abuse at his hands. This particular girlfriend would say that Jack openly wondered what it would be like to kill somebody. During their time together, she admits that Jack could be lovely at times, but as he would later do with Ashley, he smashed 2 of her phones and threatened her with a knife. The courts and police had ample evidence of Jack's violent criminal past. His family and friends knew he was a dirtbag, and no one warned Ashley. Instead, they used her to try and calm the monster.
Sacrificed her.
It does seem that way. I think that's the only way that you can see it.
It is.
Up until the sentencing, Christy and Tracy had actually kept in touch, which I think is so remarkable of Christy to do. Christy said she knew that Tracy was also grieving, and that she felt like Tracy had been kind to Ashley because she had been so excited about her to come to England and meet Jack. So it seemed like they almost shared a trauma bond. That changed, though, during the sentencing hearing when Ashley's family learned all about Jack's past and his mother's firsthand knowledge of it.
Yeah.
Friends off, right?
Absolutely.
Ashley's father said after learning about Jack's past, quote, "We had no idea of his history. I feel like I sent her to the wolves."
They didn't, but you would feel that way.
Mm-hmm. After gut-wrenching impact statements were given by Ashley's family, and I mean absolutely gut-wrenching, her family was able to capture just a bit of the trauma that they have lived through so eloquently that it had such a profound impact. Her mother talked about the difficulty of sleeping more than an hour or two because of the nightmare that Ashley had lived through in her last moments when she'd fell asleep before.
That would haunt you, knowing that you slept through that.
Jack Sepple was sentenced to life with a minimum of 23 and a half years to be spent in jail before he could apply for parole. From his jail cell, Jack has sent Ashley's family a letter, fringing remorse. And I say fringing because to me, and many others, it does not ring true at all. In the letter, he makes excuses for his actions and blames his mental health issues. He wrote, quote, "There's nothing I can say that can bring Ashley back, nor can I make your pain go away. I am very sorry for what I did, and I regret my actions that led to taking Ashley's life. You have known of my mental health as I was open to Ashley about this and how it affected my thinking. And whilst other people may not believe me, my mental health had deteriorated rapidly, and it's no excuse. But I know my intrusive thoughts have a big effect on my thinking and my actions. I just want to tell you I am so sorry. Jack Sepple.
Was that almost putting blame? You knew about this?
Yes, that's what I got from it. The excuses and the inferences that the family and Ashley should have known better because they knew about his past mental health struggles is just what makes my blood boil.
Yes, a lot of people struggle with their mental health and they don't go on and become abusers and stalkers and murder people.
Right? It's just so disingenuous.
Yeah.
One of the things that I found most sad about this case was that Ashley had actual video and pictures that she was saving of her injuries that Jack had inflicted on her. The bruising on her legs and arms was really extensive. And she even had voice notes that she had sent to friends. In them, Jack can be heard threatening her life. She was in real danger and she knew it. She was taking these pictures because she knew what was going on was clearly not okay.
It's just so sad that nobody interfered. Nobody helped.
In an interview after the sentencing, after having time to process everything, Ashley's mom says she doesn't blame Jack's family for not sharing the information about Jack's history. She rationalizes that they, just like Ashley probably did, didn't believe that Jack would ever be capable of murder. But she does point out that their decision to remain silent had consequences that she and her family now have to live with every day. She hopes in the future others will speak up and intervene when a loved one has mental health issues and shows violence in their relationships.
Oh, she is a much better Christy than I am. Wow, that's remarkable.
Isn't that remarkable?
It is.
For loved ones of someone who is experiencing domestic violence, Christy's warning is, quote, "If something doesn't feel right, act. Don't listen to them saying it's okay now, we're better." She regrets that every day because she listened to Ashley say, "It's okay, we're fine. I'll be home in a couple of days."
Right. Well, this was a new experience for them too. They hadn't been through something like this either and not seeing it firsthand.
Right. They didn't have an understanding that sometimes a person caught up in an abusive relationship is just saying everything's okay out loud to try and convince themselves. If you have a feeling, never stop asking if they want help and be ready to offer that help at a moment's notice without judgment. While the abused person needs to make that decision, they can be reminded that what they are experiencing is not a normal relationship. Because so oftentimes it happens that when you're in the middle of a relationship, it gets so confusing that they don't understand it's not normal anymore. Ashley really did believe that there was goodness inside of Jack. Just a few days before her death, she and a friend had been sharing scripture passages. The one that her friend had shared was, quote, "Wherefore you must press forward with steadfastness in Christ, having a perfect brightness of hope and a love of God and of all mankind."
And that sums her up perfectly.
Ashley really did believe that he wasn't a dirtbag that was really going to hurt her. Her mother spoke to that during her victim impact statement, saying about Jack that Ashley had, quote, "always wanted to help him and better him and help him when he was in the hospital, and he repaid her by taking her own life." Her mother went on to say, quote, "I just hope her story can shed awareness on domestic violence issues. If any girl or guy has fears of their safety, I hope this story may save someone's life and they'll take steps to reach out."
Absolutely. And that's why we do share these hard to hear stories.
Right. The UK, interestingly, does have a domestic disclosure policy known as Clare's Law that permits the police to disclose any criminal history of a convicted abuser if they believe potential victims are at risk.
Well, that's fantastic.
It is, but it wasn't used. The law is named after Claire Wood, an English woman who, in 2009, was killed by her partner, a man police knew to be violent. He served prison sentences for harassment and restraining women at knife point. Clare's Law works in two ways. There's the right to ask, through which applicants can request information, and there's the right to know. But that part isn't used as commonly, and that's where police would actually be able to tell somebody, "Hey, this is a guy you should watch out for."
But until police are even aware that they're in this situation, which would have to have been somebody calling, how are they going to know that he's even with this woman from Canada to warn her?
Exactly. in theory, this law would have helped Ashley and her family.
And this would have been a way that the mom could have called them and been like, hey, can you go talk to this girl? She's come from Canada. She's with my son. Please give her a heads up. Don't tell them I sent you.
Yeah, she could have done that. And then they would have known all about it. And her family would have had a different reaction to Ashley leaving.
Mm-hmm.
In Canada, Claire's law has been adopted by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. But I'm not sure where it applies to in the States, or if it applies in the States. But in Canada, we can use it.
That's good to know.
Mm-hmm. So know that if you have a family member, they can ask about a person's history that they're in a relationship with.
Yes. And we have a lot of listeners in the UK too, so it's good to know that.
That's true, Christy. And this case did have an impact on both countries and really brought them together. Because the people of Chelmsford, they actually arranged visuals and did all of these things while her family couldn't be there. It's just so sad. And that is the case of the gaslighting, manipulative, disturbed, antisocial dirtbag, Jack Sepple, whose propensity for violence led him to murder one of the most beautiful human beings.
May he never get released. He's a dangerous man.
He has no control over his emotions.
No, and if he gets out in 23 years, he's still young. He'll be in his 40s still. He could have decades of wreaking havoc on women to come.
Mm-hmm. Lots of time to have relationships then.
Melissa, that was quite the case. But thank you for sharing it. Ashley's story and stories like this really do need to be told.
Her family has said that even though it's so hard to hear all of the details come out and other people to discuss it, that they want her story told so that it can stand as a warning for other people in abusive relationships. Because maybe not a lot of people recognize just how dangerous it is when the abused person decides to leave.
That is one of the most dangerous times of that abusive relationship. Because a lot of abusers think like Jack did, that I'm not going to let you leave. You belong to me.
Mm-hmm. And that's definitely what triggered him into killing her that morning. So her mom really wants people to know, if you decide to leave, you do not tell your abuser.
Right.
You flee without telling them. Even if you have to leave absolutely every single thing behind, you flee.
Yep. And if you can get help doing it, have someone there to help you.
Mm-hmm.
Very true. Sadly, there was so many red flags in this in hindsight for the family, but how wonderful that they are willing to speak out and share Ashley's story to hopefully help somebody else.
Right. Because those red flags, if somebody recognizes them, can save somebody else.
Definitely. And if our podcast can help prevent a situation to even one person like this, then all of the work that we put into it is worth it.
Mm-hmm. And that's why we'll be back again next week with another case.
We hope you'll all be safe and join us for that next episode.
Until then,
see ya.
Bye.
Testing, testing. I caught her in a yawn.
That's right. And now she's going to immediately yawn as well. This happens. They're so contagious. And that's definitely what...
You're clicking something.
I'm not touching anything.
No. I could hear it clicking.
Hands are in my lap.
Yes. Heard that weird clicking that we have.
Being from BC and being from BC... I know how to do
where?
this. Yeah, from BC.
British Columbia.
Yeah, right. I don't want to say totally again, but I can... Okay.
I'm angry.
Yeah, wait. You're going to get so much more angry. Okay, ready for the absolutely maddening part? It's coming.
It's not already?
No, wait. Oh. It just gets worse. Christy's going to punch somebody. Computer just flicked off. Hold on.
It is the ghost, because I heard the little clicking.
Like it just literally like refreshed.
What?
But yeah, I didn't do anything. I will have no bloopers in this. Maybe just you getting angry, but that's okay.
That's okay.
Oh, I just need a moment.
Another Sound Off Media Company podcast.